Welcome back to another episode of the Believe Georgia Tech podcast. We're coming to you right after the Yellow Jackets 84-80 first round loss to Notre Dame in the ACC tournament. We are your co-hosts. That is RJ Schaefer. This is Jackson Caldwell. Man, what a bad way to lose a basketball game. They played so well in the second half after a rough first half. You know, they had Notre Dame misses a shot. Georgia Tech's leading. They have a chance to add to the lead. Nate George turnover leads to a Marcus Burton basket. Then, they had another turnover. Notre Dame hits the first three, gets called for a lane violation, giving the ball back to Georgia Tech, and then just another turnover. And then it was 84-80 with 5 seconds left. 2-possession game with 5 seconds left. You're just not going to be able to do anything. I mean, RJ, what's your quick thoughts? I mean, we're coming to you literally just a few minutes after this game ended, so everything's just kind of fresh.
Yeah, and it really hurts to have a game end like that, especially with both of those turnovers late being from Nate George, because Nate George was stellar offensively pretty much the whole game. When Marcus Burton got in foul trouble, he was just attacking Marcus Burton. It seemed like every single possession. So it kind of hurts having it end like this. Obviously, the big comeback. I think one big thing to take away though is, you have something amazing to build on because your two freshmen combined for 46 points in a tournament game.
Yeah. I mean, I guess let's start from the start, just to kind of take everything back. I mean, the game did not start off well. I mean, Notre Dame led like 17-5 early on. And me and you talked about it yesterday. Notre Dame is not a good offense, but they have two really good guards that if you let them get going, they can do a lot. And that's what happened this game. It was one half and the other. Like Marcus Burton was fantastic in the first half for Notre Dame. And he kind of fell off in the second. Some of that had to do with he got 4 fouls, I think he picked up his fourth with maybe around 7-8 minutes left. And you could tell that they were going like right at him, trying to get him to foul again. And that's where Nate George, and it was a good job by Georgia Tech doing it. And that's where Nate George got some of his baskets because Burton, who isn't a great defender anyway, but he was just really not like putting a ton of effort because he didn't want to draw that fifth foul. And, if you're Notre Dame, you kind of have to leave him in because, again, him and Braden Shrewsbury are your only sources of offense. Shrewsbury had the big second half. He had a pretty decent first half too, but, I mean, he looked like Klay Thompson out there in the second half. Just he would catch it and immediately get it out of his hands, and it was a three-point shot. There was a couple there in the latter part of the game where he was just left open. It was bad defense, bad rotations. But he really hit some really quick threes. Really, the only thing I could say in the first half is, George and Ndongo were really good. Ndongo had some misses today. Here's the thing: both George and Ndongo were great in this game, and I'm anxious to see how they are moving forward. They also just left some stuff out there. George had the turnovers, and Ndongo just had some what appeared to be easier shots that he normally makes going to the basket. I still think they got a little bit to work on that pick and roll in terms of, not turning the ball over. But, any real first half thoughts? It was basically just really bad defense from Georgia Tech. Notre Dame's we gave you the stats yesterday. Notre Dame's a bad offense, only better than Virginia in the conference. And they shot 62% in the first half and 55% from three.
Yeah, and that was their highest scoring first half of the season.
Yeah.
I think what we talked about earlier, like my key to the game, I said was team defense, and that didn't really happen until the second half to really any extent. We obviously knew Marcus Burton was going to have his way. Like you can't stop a guy like that from scoring. But the first half was rough, especially getting into the start of the second half. Like it was more of the same.
Yeah. Miles Kelly did end up playing today. He had the back issue against Virginia. So we talked about it yesterday, just really anxious to see how he did. Not his greatest game. He did hit a a good 3 in the second half. But I mean, really, just putting a bow on this first half, like you were saying, like the defense was just all around just bad. And to Stoudemire's credit, he did come out, made some, and he actually didn't come out and make some adjustments in the second half. As the second half went along, he made some adjustments because for about the first 7-8 minutes of that second half, it was kind of just more of the same. Shrewsbury hit some open threes, like I was just saying. He was catching and shooting threes. It was kind of crazy to see, even for a player of his caliber. And then Stoudemire started kind of putting the full court press on him. Like Gapari really helped out in the second half. He also made some good passes in the first half, as a side note. But his athleticism and his length really came through in the second half. Notre Dame at one point had like 9 turnovers in the second half. Like that was one of the big reasons that Georgia Tech was able to come back. And we're used to the shoe being on the other foot. Like the Georgia Tech's usually the team turning it over. It wasn't really a huge problem until literally the very end of the game. And Nate George just kept hitting big baskets. I mean, you had Miles Kelly but his best play of the game was that steal that led to Nate George's 4-point play. Debo Coleman kind of had a funky bounce on a 3 that went in. He played like 14 minutes today, I think. He had he did some good things. He's kind of fallen out of the rotation at times this year, but Kyle Sturtevant kind of had a subpar game. Looking at it, he's been one of the better bench players in the ACC this year, but he just really didn't have it today. But at the end of the day, just turnovers, failing to get that offensive rebound at the end of the game, everything just added up to a loss in the end of the season. And me and you are both 0-1 in our ACC tournament picks, looking at the big picture. So I'm sure we're going to get a win here in a little bit with NC State playing Louisville. But we'll come here at a later date and talk about the season as a whole. Do you have any final thoughts other than that's a tough way to end the game? The 2 guys that really just got you back in the game just made some mistakes at the end.
Yeah, and I think I wouldn't say the fault of the game is on Nate George. I would say more of the fault is on the first half.
Sure.
Because Nate George, I truly believe like he gave everything he had.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those turnovers, like that Bayandongo turnover kind of late in the game, where he should have grabbed onto the ball instead of like trying to flick it out to Sturtevant. It's just these small mistakes that you can look at that end up in a loss, but I think more of it is you come out in the first half and you let Notre Dame completely dominate you on offense.
Yeah. I mean, Notre Dame, 14 turnovers. Tech only scored 19 points off those turnovers. You kind of want that margin to be a little bit more. When somebody has 14 turnovers, like you want to make them pay. So I think that number could have improved. But, man, if I'd have told you that Notre Dame would have had twice as many turnovers as Georgia Tech, I think me and you both said they would have won if you'd told us that yesterday. The 3-point shooting got a little better in the second half. It was basically like the Virginia game in the first half. Like Georgia Tech could not hit a 3. Like Nate George had 3. He hit 3 threes in the first half. He was the only player to hit a 3 in the first half. And he came and hit one to start the second half. Like he was at one point the only player that had a 3. And like I said, Miles Kelly hit 1. Debo Coleman hit 1. I think Sturtevant did. I think he hit 1 in the second half as well. But just an overall tough way to lose, tough way to end the season. Obviously, Notre Dame now gets to play Wake Forest tomorrow at 2:30 instead of Georgia Tech. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up here?
Not really.
Yep. Well, like I said, we will be back at some point in the future to kind of put a bow on this season, kind of wrap it all up, take our time to get some thoughts. That'll probably be sometime next week. We'll figure it out, though. Like always, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. We know it sucks listening to stuff, and it's hard listening to stuff when the team loses. Like it makes it not very fun, but for those that do, we really do appreciate it. And we thank you for the support. If you're listening on podcasts, just be sure to leave us a review, 1 star, 5 star. Just let us know how we're doing, what we can do better. Follow us, subscribe. I don't know what they call that on podcasts, like what you got to do, but just make sure you're keeping up with us, and we appreciate it. But that's going to do it for me and RJ. We will be back sometime next week, and thank you for listening.